everybody, to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we're really excited to sit down with Tariem and Nick, and they're going to share their experience of adopting through our agency. So welcome, guys.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's great that we can continue doing this via Zoom as we're all dealing with lovely COVID. Can you guys talk a little bit about when you first decided to come into the adoption process and what that was like for you in terms of the support you had from your family and your community?
We got a lot of support. I mean, first, of course, we've had a conversation about having children, and we are a gay couple, so we thought adoption would be the right route for us. Our family was very supportive in the beginning, as well as her friends. We had some really cool parties to celebrate our going forward with this process. One here and also one in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think people were largely thrilled and very supportive. My parents in particular sort of never thought they would have grandchildren, so they were very thrilled.
Would you say that adoption is common amongst, your family and friends or your community?
I would say no. I'm trying to think of anybody in my family who is adopted, and I can only think of maybe two relatives, but they're fairly distant. So
I have none. Yeah. So in our families, it's certainly not common, and I think among our friends, we've been the trailblazers in that regard, trying to motivate more people to do the same. But we went through the whole process with two friends of ours who adopted through Adoptions from the Heart at the same time. It took them a little bit longer to have a placement, but we went through the classes together. So there was support from families and from our friends.
I don't know if you would agree, but oftentimes with interracial relationships, you've already had to face, the questions or concerns because there's different races already within the makeup of your family, right? Before your son came into the picture. So that already kind of starts the conversation of quote unquote difference and what that will look like and how you kind of prepare for questions or feedback that comes from the community.
Absolutely.
And beyond race, I mean, we have to deal with difference as gay people, right? So it just sort of comes naturally, I think, to not to say that supersedes in any way racial stuff, but there is sort of the comfort in dealing with difference from very early on, and then navigating the interracial nature of the relationship adds to that.
Do you have any particulars of how you guys handle that difference, how you kind of face any sort of questions that might come at you? I know you've been together for a while. How do you face that? Because I feel like there's probably a lot of similarities with the transracial conversation, right?
Well, it all starts with a question and pushing back when either of us says something about a particular event or situation that has occurred, but also being comfortable with one another to have those conversations as well, because the conversations need to be had. We all come in with our own biases, our own lens, based on our experiences, and to be comfortable with one another to actually push back, actually dig deeper and have those conversations, and kind of pretty much putting some light on some areas or things that we never thought about before.
Noticing blind spots that we might have had, or things that we hadn't thought about. A lot of times when people sometimes get nervous about these kind of conversations or things, it's because their lives are segregated, right? They're surrounded by people who are just like them, rather than purposefully making the effort to have a wide array of people in their lives. So that can cause some of the discomfort and difficulty with these things if you haven't taken those steps to sort of immerse yourself into different people's ways of being.
Get over yourself. It's not about you, it's about the kid.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I say I think it's so important to discuss interracial couples, because it's almost as if you've already started that journey of people questioning the difference, and not verbally always, but just the idea, because you've already had to immerse yourself in something different, right? Each of you were faced with someone who was different. So you've already kind of taken that leap, as opposed to individuals, no matter what their race is, when couples come into it together of the same race, they haven't had that experience yet. So I do think that that's just a really important conversation, and why I wanted to interview an interracial couple, because I think that holds a lot of validity to what we're discussing. I think it all starts with being open to having the conversations, right? That's kind of what you're getting at. And I think that oftentimes people don't like to talk about things that make them feel icky or make them feel a little uncomfortable, right? And race can oftentimes be one of those conversations that people, especially white folks, just don't want to talk about.
Right.
So I think it's great that you guys are open-minded to it.
Yeah. And, I think sometimes we think about like other people navigating the process or having transracial adoption. And one of the things that I think both of us sort of come down to is like, just be human, have conversations, be open.
Right.
Don't get so caught up in like your biases and your fears of doing the wrong thing and tiptoeing around stuff. Just be real. Just be a real person and figure it out.
Right.
Now,
because it's just understanding that you are both different. You come from two different backgrounds. We both understand that. Let's find some common ground and some footing to go forward together.
when you guys came into the process, had you been open to any racial background?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one thing is that we're just incredibly lucky to live in Philadelphia, that in a place that is so diverse, at least in our life. There's a lot of segregation in neighborhoods here and other problems related to poverty and other things in the city. But our life is really diverse. Our son goes to a school where we see pictures of his classes, and they're it's like each kid is something different. So that's just a really lucky context to be in. When we travel places, we deal with assumptions sometimes around, I think around sexuality, like, oh, where's his mother, or who's his mother, sort of things. But beyond that, nothing. Yeah. And have we prepared to have these conversations? I think the way both of us handle things is to not make a huge deal out of them, and just to navigate them as they go, or as they come up. I don't think we're worried about any of these conversations, but we'll ensure that Finn knows the ways of the world that he is being raised into.
I wanted to make sure we hit on that point of open adoption, because I think that that's something a lot of our birth parents, when we interviewed them, had said about their communities, is that it wasn't that adoption necessarily was not common, it was the idea of openness and what that would look like. So for you guys, and specifically for you, Tariem, within your community, do you feel like that is something that is talked about or common, or what has been your experience with that?
I don't think it's something that is talked about or as common, but one of the reasons that we wanted open adoption is that we also believe it's important for our child, for Finn, to want to know where he comes from. If he has any questions, he's able to get those questions. And not in a perfect world, that can happen, but sometimes it's not able to happen, but he can do that if that is an option. We felt that was really important.
Yeah, and regarding open adoption, I think it's sort of the one area that nobody in our life has known anything about. Right. That's probably the thing we get the most questions about is what is open adoption? What does that mean? So we try to educate people and focus on how it's better for the kid. But there's all different degrees of openness. COVID has made it really tough to have. We were due for a visit a couple months ago, and that hasn't happened because of this pandemic. Hopefully, after it's over, we can get back on track with that. But yeah, there's a lot of questions about it. People don't know anything about it in either of our communities, I think.
Well, and it's great because it sounds like you see the importance of it, not just because it's a requirement of what you guys went through, but you know the benefits of it for your son. And that's amazing. I mean,
Absolutely.
That shows your dedication to him, not just the adoption process or the age. Christy and I have learned a lot through this process and just kind of hearing other people's voices and opinions, and everyone has a different opinion and we respect everyone's voice in this conversation. Some folks have put the point out there that they feel that children of color should be raised by parents of color. What is your response to that?
I'll let you take that.
It's a good question, because I'm currently dealing with that in academia, that students of color should only be taught by students by faculty and teachers of color. So it's an age-old discussion, and I don't believe so. I don't believe that it has to be black parent, black child, or white parent, white child, because that doesn't always happen. Everybody has different circumstances. I believe as long as the parent is caring and is also willing to acknowledge that you don't have the same backgrounds, and that's okay, but what can I do to kind of help you realize that you are going to be navigating this world differently than I have navigated this world, and making sure that you have the tools and the resources and the connections for you to be able to navigate this world.
And for you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of, I'm putting on my professional hat for a second, but I'm not aware of any evidence to suggest that a kid needs a parent of their own race or of their own sexuality. I think what kids need is love, consistency, reliability, boundaries. I don't think they need a parent who is their same race or straight or gay or whatever, right? They just need a parent.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because as a counselor who sits down with birth parents, specifically birth mothers, all the time, and you hear what they want out of this process, I think what you just listed is exactly what a majority of them will say, right? They want their kid to be loved. They want to place their kid with a family that's going to love and care for their child in many of the ways
Give them the best chance at doing well in life.
Right.
Exactly. And when I ask them, do you have any sort of preferences? We want to make sure you have as many options as possible when you're looking at those profiles of families. I would say a majority don't. A majority just want to have options in front of them, and they're not looking necessarily at, your race or your sexuality, or even just geographically where you are. They just want to know that you're going to give their kid a good life. So I think you said it wonderfully, Nick. Well, I just want to leave on any final note that you might have. Anything else you guys want to make sure is well received or well heard by the community?
Yeah, no, adopt, sign up, do this. It's amazing. It's great. If you're thinking about it, do it. Figure out the finances. If you're a person of color who's thinking about adopting, get off that pot and do it.
Yeah.
Talk to someone. There are people here to talk to, and if they are on the fence, we're happy to talk to someone.
Yeah, we'll talk to anybody.
About this. But if you really want to do this, then do it, and you won't let anything stand in your way to help make a great home for a kid that just wants to be loved.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I hope our viewers have learned something today, and please tune in next week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.